بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. This is the mic check. Now is your chance. If the sound quality is off or you can't hear what I'm saying, now's the time to let me know. Okay, seems to be working. So, mashallah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. So we have the chat's exploding, mashallah. Smash that like button, guys. All right. So, Bismillah. Sorry, I just got out of the kitchen and I was cooking, so I'm kind of hot, sweaty and stuff. Bismillah. Smash it. Yeah, smash the like button. So, Bismillah. Last week we started with the introduction about why we're taking children around the Prophet ﷺ, and we said that there's a lot of wisdom that we can get about what was expected of children, how the Prophet ﷺ treated children, the responsibility he gave to them, the mercy he gave to them, and how some of the children around the Prophet ﷺ, what they grew up to become. So, this week we're going to start straight off with probably the most important and the most influential of the Sahabi that were children around the Prophet ﷺ, which is the title of the video, which is Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, the first child of Islam. Now, for those who took the Seerah series with me, you are more than familiar with Ali bin Abi Talib. He's come up so many times. He's a crucial player. But for those who did not, we're going to go into some of the aspects of his life. This is not going to be a biography about Ali bin Abi Talib because that would be way too long, and I'm trying to keep this 35 minutes maximum. This is not going to be a full biography, but what it is going to do, we're going to look at the childhood of Ali bin Abi Talib and his young years growing up around the Prophet ﷺ. And we're going to see how his life was influenced by Islam and how Islam was influenced by him. So, here's a trick question for you guys. Actually, it's not a trick question. It's very obvious. Ali bin Abi Talib. So who was his father? I'll give you guys time. Ali bin Abi Talib. Who was his father? There are 15 people in this chat. Somebody should know. Ali. No, he was Ali. So Ali bin Abi Talib. Very good. Abu Talib. It's in the name. So in Arabic, when you say bin something, that means son of. So Ali bin Abi Talib means Ali, son of Abu Talib. So if I'm Ibrahim bin Zahir, my father is Zahir. So Ali bin Abi Talib, his father was Abu Talib. Who was Abu Talib? Abu Talib was the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, also very important in the seerah. He was the uncle of the Prophet, and we know that he took care of the Prophet. He cared for him when he was growing up. He basically adopted him when his parents died. and he was the one protecting the Prophet from the Quraysh in the early years of the da'wah of Islam. So Ali is the son of Abu Talib, right? Now here's another question. Abu Talib had a lot of kids. Who was his eldest son? We're not going to talk about the evil uncle today, but who was Abu Talib's eldest son? Is another tricky question. Nope, Ali was actually the youngest son. Who was his oldest son? I'll give you a hint. It's also in the name. Nope, Ali was the youngest son. Abu Talib, come on, it's in the name. Abu Talib. So who was his eldest son? Talib, very good. So when somebody is Abu something, he's named after his eldest son. So Abu Talib means his eldest son was Talib. So Abu Talib, and his real name was Abd Munaf. I believe so. Yeah, Abd Manaf. Yeah. His real name was that, but he was called Abu Talib. His eldest son was Talib, and Talib was around the same age as the Prophet. Okay? Now, Abu Talib had, as far as we know, 3 kids. Talib, sorry, 4 kids. Talib, or 4 sons, I should say. I should be very careful with my word. Talib, Aqil, Ja'far, and his youngest son, Ali, who we're going to talk about today. I'm just giving you guys the background and the dynamic, and also just to help you out. When you hear something bin something, now you know that bin means son and Abu means father. Okay? How many kids total did he have? We don't know because at least I don't know, but they don't mention his daughters. He may have had daughters, he may have not, but we know that he had 4 sons. Now, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was young, his parents had passed away and he was raised by Abu Talib. So Abu Talib basically adopted the Prophet ﷺ, and he grew up in the house of Abu Talib. Abu Talib's kids were very spaced out, meaning there were at least 10 years between each one. So Talib was 10 years older than Aqil. Aqil was 10 years older than Ja'far, and Ja'far was 10 years older than Ali. Now the Rasul ﷺ, when he got older and he grew up, he got married to Khadija, his wife, and he moved out. Abu Talib, though, still had a very big family, and because of his big family and the times were tough for Abu Talib, and there was a famine in Mecca at the time, he became very poor. So Abu Talib had difficulty taking care of his family. Now the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was raised by Abu Talib, and now he's self-sufficient, he's grown up, he's moved out, he's married, and he thinks that he needs to help Abu Talib out because Abu Talib is struggling to raise all his kids and his family. He doesn't have a whole lot of money, and there's a famine going on. So the Rasul goes to his other uncle Abbas, who is not evil. He was not the evil uncle. He goes to Abbas and he tells Abbas, he said, listen, your brother is going through a lot of difficulty. We need to help him out somehow. So I suggest, what if we go to him and take care of 2 of his kids? You take one of his sons, I take the other son. So Abbas says, okay, that's a good idea. So they go to Abu Talib and they say, Abu Talib, times are difficult. Think of your children. We're here to help. I will take one of your children and kind of raise him in my family, and Abbas will take another one of your children and raise him in his family. So Abu Talib said, listen, that would help me a lot, but I don't want any of you guys to take Aqil. I like Aqil a lot. So take any of the other kids. So Abbas, he looked around and he saw the kids and he was like, okay, let me see, who am I going to choose? And he chose Ja'far. Ja'far was 10 years old at the time. So he said, I'll take Ja'far. Why? Because a 10-year-old at the time, not now anymore, a 10-year-old was helpful. A 10-year-old could do work. A 10-year-old could get a job. A 10-year-old was productive. So Abbas said, I'll take Abbas. I'll take Ja'far. Ja'far, he's 10 years old. I can give him some chores. I can do him some work. He can actually be helpful. The Rasul, who had just gotten married, he's newlywed, he looks around and he sees baby Ali. Ali was just a baby at the time. He picks up Ali. He hugs him. He says, I'll take Ali then. Why not? So he was not his slave, no. But children at the time were expected to do helpful work. I'll just leave it at that. So the Rasul took Ali bin Abi Talib. So Ali is the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam's cousin, right? And he grew up in the house of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just like the Rasul grew up in his uncle's house. So Abu Talib raised the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now when the Rasul grew up, he's returning the favor and raising one of Abu Talib's kids. So Ali is now being raised in the house of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, while Abu Talib is raising his other kids, and Abbas took Ja'far. So this is very interesting because now we have a person who is literally raised in the house of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You don't have anyone better to give you a look at his life. Why is that? Whenever you see a celebrity or an athlete or any famous person, the only thing you know about that person is what you see from the outside on TV, on the news, when you meet in front of people. You don't know what their private life is like. You don't know how they are in their own home. You don't know how they are with their families. You don't know that, right? When you talk to somebody that's actually from the family, that actually lives with the family, you get a private look at their life, right? So any famous person you see, if you really want to know how they are, the true them, you need to talk to someone that lives with them. So when we look at the Rasul, somebody could make the argument, okay, yeah, sure, he was nice and he was good in front of the people, but inside his house, we don't know how he was. Well, now we do, because we can talk to people and we learn from people like Ali what it was like to live in his house. So when did this happen, this whole adoption thing that happened? Around, we're not 100% sure, 8, 9, or 10 years before the Rasul became a prophet. So when the Rasul got the wahi from Jibril and the first Quran was revealed to the Rasul ﷺ, how old was Ali? Either 8, 9, or 10. Probably not older than 10, probably not younger than 8. Again, we're not 100% sure because back then they didn't record their birthdays. They weren't, people were not entitled. They did not demand birthday snaps or birthday messages. So, nice to meet you, Hungry. I am Ibrahim. So, when the Rasul ﷺ got the wahi, he became, Ali was 8 years old. So we all know the very famous story of, Jibril coming and squeezing the Prophet and saying, Iqra, and he says, Ma ana biqara, he said, I don't know how to read. So we know that story. Now here's an interesting question people don't ask. When this whole thing was happening, what was going on at the Prophet's house? We know Khadija was there and the Rasul ran there. Ali was actually living in the house at the time. Ali was an 8-year-old kid, and he was still staying with the Prophet ﷺ and Khadija. So it's narrated that the first wahi, the first time Jibril came and told the Rasul ﷺ, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, that surah, whatever happened, the Rasul ﷺ didn't really tell his immediate family. He kept it just him and Khadija and maybe Waraqa and like one other person. Nobody else really heard this message, and the Rasul didn't spread it around. And a lot of time went by between the first time the Rasul got Quran and the second time. In the second time, guys, enough with the shenanigans in the chat, like, because I need to use that for people asking questions or when I ask questions. So in that, when the second revelation came, the Rasul ﷺ came and Jibreel came for the second time. And the Rasul was very scared the first time he saw Jibreel. He was terrified. The second time, Rasul was also scared, but this time he ran to Khadija's house again and Jibril followed him. So the first time Jibril kind of the Rasul ran away from him. This time Jibril followed him. So the Rasul ﷺ ran to back to his house with Khadija, and he said, Dathiruni, dathiruni, cover me, cover me, cover me, just like he did the first time. But this time Khadija put a blanket around him and he says, Jibril is still there. He's in the house right now. And Khadija's like, where? And he points at a location in the house and she can't see Jibril. So she says, is that him? And he said, yes. So Jibril came and he said, does anybody know the second revelation? So we all know that the first Quran was, the first surah to reveal was Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Just out of curiosity, does anybody know what the second surah is? So, good question. Ibrahim wasn't scared when he saw Jibril because Jibril came in the form of a person. Jibril came in the form of a human being. He didn't look like his angelic form. When Jibril came to the Rasul ﷺ, he took his full form. So, very good. Somebody said, it's not Baqarah, it's not Falaq. Somebody said Muzammil. Muzammil and Muddathir, we're not 100% sure because there are two different accounts of which one came first. But it seems that Muddathir was the second one and Muzammil came right after. So, Ya ayyuhal muddathir and Ya ayyuhal muzammil, one or the other came before. If somebody has a strong source to show me, maybe Muzammil came first. But at this point, while Khadija is holding the Rasul ﷺ, Jibreel alayhi salam tells the Rasul ﷺ the second surah, which is Ya ayyuhal muddathir. قم فأنذر وربك فكبر وثيابك فطهر والرجز فهجر. He gives him the first 10 or so ayahs of Surah Al-Muddathir. One of the things about that surah is that it says وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ وَالرُّجْزَ. In the surah and in Surah Al-Muzammil as well, it tells the Rasul ﷺ to start praying. So the first time it says iqra. Now the command is coming, you need to start praying. So Khadija holds the Rasul ﷺ until the surah is done, and then she says, is he still there? And the Rasul says, no, he's left. So now that he's gotten this command from Allah to start praying, he tells Khadija, we need to start praying at night. And this again comes from Surah Al-Muzammil as well. قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. So at night, that first time it came on Monday. On Tuesday, the Rasul and Khadija say we need to start praying at night to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So their first night, on Monday night, they get up in the middle of the night and they start praying. Now, was it the same prayer that we pray right now? It doesn't seem to be, because the rules of prayer didn't come down. But what they were doing was they were raising their hands to Allah and saying Allahu Akbar and praising Him. So it was some form of prayer, but it wasn't exactly the prayer that we pray now, because Allah did not show him how to pray just yet. Now, in the middle of the night, they're praying and they're making noises and stuff, and they're making some commotion. Ali comes. Ali walks into the room and he sees his cousin, and he sees his cousin's wife, basically his adoptive parents, even though they never officially adopted him, which is important. We need to note that the Rasul never officially adopted Ali, but he did take care of him and he raised him. So Ali walks in and he sees the Rasul and he sees Khadija praying. And he says, Ya Muhammad, ma hadha? Says, Muhammad, what is this? And this is, first of all, this part is very, very, very like the part I really want to highlight is this part. There's so much we can learn from this conversation that Ali has. First of all, Ali is, yes, they did read Quran while they prayed. First of all, what we see is that there is a relationship between Ali and the Rasul, even though that there's a large age gap. That the Rasul ﷺ, that Ali called the Rasul, Ya Muhammad. So yeah, what you're asking about this 50 salahs thing, this comes later. That's why I'm saying this form of salah was not the final version of salah. The final version of salah doesn't happen until Isra wa Mi'raj, where they go up to, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him the proper way to pray, the proper number of prayers. At this point, none of that has been revealed. He just says pray. They don't really know how to pray, so they're just doing whatever they know how. They said, okay, praying means worshipping, so let's say Allahu Akbar and recite the Quran. So Ali, he says, Muhammad, ma hadha? He says, Muhammad, even though he's much younger than the Rasul ﷺ, they had a very strong relationship. The Rasul treated him like he was his little brother, basically. So he says, Muhammad, ma hadha? He's like, what are you guys doing? Because he gets up in the middle of the night and he sees them just, praying. And he says, what are you guys doing? Right? And they looked at each other, and the Rasul ﷺ says, he tells him, we are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the religion of Allah that He has given to me, that we worship only Allah, and we disbelieve in Lat and Uzza. Lat and Uzza were the false gods that the people of Mecca used to worship. Now he's very honest with Ali. He could have said, oh, we're not doing anything, go to bed, it's past your bedtime, right? He could have basically told him or given him a little kid answer. When little kids ask questions, sometimes you give like an answer just to make them quiet. How would they pray if they only knew 2 surahs? So once this happens, the second revelation, more and more surahs would come more and more frequently. So yes, at this point they only knew this, but like I said, they would sabbih, they would kabbir, they would do whatever they knew how, and the more Quran that came down, the more they would recite it. How long did they usually pray for? Surah Al-Muzammil says, قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. So it was basically commanding the Rasul to pray most of the night, like leave a section of the night to sleep and the rest of it pray. And that was something that the Rasul kept doing for the rest of his life, was that he would pray the whole time. So the Rasul tells Ali exactly what they're doing. Even though he's a little kid, he doesn't belittle his intelligence. He doesn't insult his intelligence. He doesn't say, oh, me and mommy are just practicing our yoga. No, he tells him straight up exactly what they are doing. He says, this is the religion of Allah. Allah has given to me, and we are worshipping Allah with no partners, and we are disbelieving in Lat and Uzza. So the Rasul ﷺ even then tells Ali, he says, and I invite you to join our religion as well, to believe in Allah and to disbelieve in all other partners and all other gods. Again, very interesting thing. He tells Ali, he says, I invite you. He says, I'm asking you to join us. He could have said, for example, Ali, from now on, you're a Muslim. You understand? He could have commanded him because he's much older. And it's a thing that an adult can command a child to do something, even if he's not exactly your son. One time I was at the mall, and just as a joke, I saw these kids going into, what was that? Hot Topic. You know, that store in the mall? And I saw them going into Hot Topic, and I looked at them as a joke. I'm like, guys, don't go into the store. It's bad. And they were like this, like, oh, sorry. And they run away. I'm just like, no, guys, I was kidding. So he gives a life-changing situation to a kid. Yes, but look at this. Let's finish the whole story. So he says, I invite you to accept the religion that we are and to worship only Allah. So Ali says, he thinks about it, and he's still a little kid. He goes like, I've never heard of this before. I want to ask my dad first. Let's see if anyone was paying attention. Who's Ali's dad? Ali bin Abi Talib. Who is his father? Thank you. Abu Talib. Not Talib, Abu Talib. So he says, I want to ask my dad first. Smart kid. Again, he wants permission from his parents. So the Rasul ﷺ said, Illam taslim faskut. He said, listen, if you're not going to become a Muslim, then keep quiet. Meaning, don't tell this to anybody. Don't just go around and start blurting this to people. So he says to him, if you don't want to become a Muslim, then stay quiet. So Ali just stayed quiet, and the Rasul ﷺ and Khadija continued to pray. So they started praying, and Ali was watching. Now, just this conversation is so interesting, because even though Ali is 8, maybe 10 years old, maybe at most 10 years old, the Rasul ﷺ, first of all, is treating him like an adult, right? And yes, it was a secret, to answer your question. At this point, nobody knows about Islam. The only two Muslims in the whole world is the Rasul ﷺ and Khadija. Nobody else is a Muslim yet. So they continue praying, and Ali is watching. And you notice that, first of all, the Rasul didn't dumb down the situation. He told him exactly what it was. He didn't force Ali into the religion, but he also didn't hide him or shield him from it. Some of the things that I notice with a lot of parents sometimes, they wait until the kid is like, oh, he's not ready for Islam. I'm going to wait until he's 15 years old, and then I'll teach him about Islam. And then you have them bringing a 15-year-old to the masjid for the first time, and he has no idea what's happening. And then they come to me, oh, Ibrahim, can you teach him about Islam? I'm like, where were you the last 15 years? It's too late now. Like he's completely confused, or he doesn't know what's going on. So as soon as the child is old enough to understand, the Rasul ﷺ treated that person like a thinking, rational adult up to their level. So that night, Ali goes to sleep. And he said, in that night, while I was in bed sleeping, or while I was in bed trying to sleep, I was thinking about what the Prophet said. Now Ali, because he was raised in the house of the Prophet, had never worshipped another god before. The Rasul and Khadija, even before the Rasul became a prophet, they never worshipped an idol. So Ali had never worshipped an idol either. And he thought about what the Prophet said, and the Prophet didn't give him a whole lecture. He just told him 1 or 2 sentences. And Ali said, حُبِّبَ إِلَيَّ Islam. He said, the idea of Islam, I liked it a lot. So the next morning, they wake up, and Ali comes into, whatever living room they had, and he goes to the Rasul and he says, Muhammad, can you tell me what you told me again? You know how kids, though, you have to repeat sometimes for them to understand. So they ask him, and they say, why? He asked him, can you repeat what you said last time, what you told me yesterday? So the Rasul said, sure, no problem. Again, he's very polite, very understanding with Ali, because he's speaking to a younger child. And he says, we're worshipping Allah alone, we're not disbelieving in him, and we're disbelieving in the other gods. And the Rasul said, and Ali said, okay, Aslamt. He said, I want to be a Muslim. Guys, can we keep the questions till the end? Because I'll try to answer all the questions, inshallah, but don't hit me with all of them at once, because then I'm like, my brain is like following two things at once. So we'll just leave the questions till the end, inshallah. So Ali becomes a Muslim, and this makes him Muslim number 3, and the first child in Islam. So a lot of people ask, who was the first person to become a Muslim? There's a lot of firsts, really. The first woman of Islam was Khadija. The first child in Islam was Ali. The first free man in Islam was Abu Bakr. And the first freed slave of Islam was Zayd bin Haritha. And then everyone else kind of followed. You had the second woman, the second child, the third, the fourth. But Ali was number 1. In this time, Ali bin Abi Talib basically saw the Rasul ﷺ calling people to Islam privately. Again, at this point, it's still a secret. Sorry, there's a fly. Islam is still a secret at this point. So the Rasul ﷺ starts having private meetings with certain people from his extended family or from his tribe, and starts having meetings with them, and he brings Ali with him. And Ali said that the Rasul used to take me on his meetings with people, and I used to sit and watch him calling people to Islam in their houses. He would visit someone's house, and he said sometimes Abu Bakr would come too, and I would stay silent. Who can tell me, why is this wise? Why did the Rasul ﷺ bring Ali even though Ali didn't say anything? Why did the Rasul ﷺ bring Ali along to these little meetings he had with people, even though Ali was a young child and he wasn't saying anything? Because he trusts him, because he was nice. Okay, that's true. The Rasul ﷺ is like, yeah, come on, you can come with me. The first masjid rat, maybe, I don't know. He was a good boy. He didn't want the Prophet to get in trouble. He liked him, so he could learn. Very good. Thank you, Sweatband. I don't know who that is. So he could learn. He wants to give him the experience of what it's like to call people to Islam, and to also learn what Islam is. One of the things that's kind of lost in our modern world that, hasn't been going on, that used to go on a lot in the days, is something called apprenticeship, where someone experienced would bring a younger person and teach them by bringing them along. This kind of happens in medical field, where new doctors who are learning become an apprentice under another doctor, and they just follow the doctor along, and they see how he does things, and they take notes, and they help him out and stuff. This used to be something that all trades used to do. So if you were a baker, for example, you would have your son who was just standing next to you, and you'd be like, you, go get me milk, you, get me water, you, turn on the fire. And you would do things for him. But while you're doing this, you're not just doing chores. What are you doing? You're learning. So the Rasul ﷺ was bringing Ali with him, even though he was a young child, and Ali was just sitting there watching him and Abu Bakr, and he was learning how to call people to Islam. And this is something that any good parent, when he wants to raise his kids on something, he doesn't leave his kids at home and he does things. And wallahi, sometimes I ask kids, what are your parents doing? And they're like, I don't know. You don't know what your dad's job is? I'm not sure. He goes to an office and he goes on a computer. Like, they don't even know what their parents do. I remember when I was young, my dad used to, because he was involved with a lot of masjid stuff, he just like that, he used to take me with him, and he used to say, like, listen, you come with me, I'll buy you a can of Pepsi or something. And I was like, whoa, Pepsi? But I learned, subhanAllah, from him what it was like to deal with different communities, and how to deal with masajid, and how to deal with organizations. Amir's dad is a father, mashallah. Like, it's so many like subhanAllah. I gotta turn off the chat, man. You guys are crazy. So anyways, the Rasul ﷺ slowly started building people up and started calling people to Islam, and Ali was amongst them. One day, the Rasul ﷺ, and this is the famous story that we know, the Rasul called his tribe, and he stood on the Mount Safa, the mountain of Safa, and he called them, and this is a famous story that everyone knows, and he said, "O people, if I were to tell you right now that there's an army behind this mountain, Would you believe me? And all of the people there said, yes, we do believe you. You are the most honest person in this whole city. So then he said, then I warn you people of something even worse than an army. The punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you disbelieve in him and if you associate partners with him. And the Rasul said on top of the mountain, now it's public. This is the first time he's making it public. He starts calling to the people and he tells them what Islam is. And after he gives his speech, he tells them at the end, he says, so who will join me? And Ali was in the crowd of people and the whole crowd was silent, dead silent. Imagine the Rasul, imagine how awkward it is. The Rasul is standing on the mountain and there's a crowd of people in front of him and he says, so who will join me to become a Muslim? Not a single person says anything. Everyone likes the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ too much to insult him. They don't want to be mad at him and insult him, but they're like, they have no idea what he's talking about. They're not following him at all. So the Rasul, one more time, he says, people, who will join me? And then Ali calls out, he says, I will join you, Ya Rasulullah. Now Ali, why did he say that? Because he's already a Muslim. The Rasul knows he's already a Muslim, but he sees nobody else is answering, so he wants to make, he is hoping that when he says me, everyone will follow him. But what does that do instead? When you have a crowd of people and the only person to answer is a little kid, what happens? That makes it look worse. So when Ali says, I will follow you, Ya Rasulullah, people start like laughing and some people like, so, and then the Rasul's uncle, the evil uncle, Abu Lahab. By the way, Abu Lahab's son was not Lahab. Abu Lahab is his nickname. Abu Lahab says, Tabbat yadaka ya Muhammad. He says, curse your hand, Muhammad. Is this why you brought us here? He basically insults the Prophet in front of everybody. He says, curse you, Muhammad. This is why you brought us here. And this is where the surah came, Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers back to Abu Lahab. So, after this, the Rasul ﷺ was exposed for the first time. He was exposed to the first time the rejection of his people. And Ali said, after that day, me and the Prophet would walk through the city and everybody would turn their heads away from us. Nobody would even look at us. And he said it was the weirdest thing because everywhere we went, when we passed by a tree and we passed by a rock, the trees and the rocks would say Salamu Alaikum to the Prophet. So the trees and the rocks, Ali could hear it. And this was one of the miracles, that the trees and the rocks would say Salamu Alaikum to the Prophet. And Ali could hear it. He said the trees and the rocks would say Salamu Alaikum to the Prophet and the people would turn their heads away from the Rasul. So the Rasul ﷺ, when he sees the situation is like this, he tells Ali, he says, I have a mission for you. I want you to go around the city and stay near the Kaaba and look at people and see if you find anybody who looks interested in Islam. Now again, at this point, Ali is now like maybe 10, 11 years old. A few years have passed. He's a little older, but he's still a kid. He's still a little child. But the Rasul is now utilizing a child. Why is a child useful in this case? Because when you're in a city, guys, please, enough with the chat. I will answer questions, inshallah. Just take it easy. I'm trying to read everything and talk at the same time. I'm not good at multitasking. So, where was I? I'm lost. So, why would he give this mission to a child? Because when you're in the city, you're on the lookout for people that you may see as a threat. But you don't look at a child. Kids are always like at the back of your mind. You're not paying attention to them. You don't look at a child and think, oh, he's probably a spy. He's probably... No. So Ali would basically all day, he would sit near the Kaaba and he would watch the faces of people. And he would look, they can't hit children. They didn't care back then. He would look around and he would see people, and if he saw somebody that was interested or seemed like he was interested or was looking for the Prophet, he would go to the Rasul and say, he would come to him and tell him, there's somebody near this place and he's looking for you, or there's somebody who seems like he's interested in Islam. Again, Ali from the youngest age is being useful and is being productive to Islam, and he's not shying away. He doesn't tell the Prophet, he doesn't say, listen, I'm scared and nobody likes you, so I don't really want to do this. I'm sorry. No, he's excited. He wants to help the Prophet. And even though everybody is against the Prophet, Ali sticks with him. Even Ali's own father, Abu Talib, was not accepting Islam. He didn't hate the Prophet. He was protecting the Prophet, but he said, listen, do what you want, but I'm going to stick to my religion. So Ali was literally, there's so much so there's a narration where a visitor came to Mecca. He was a businessman. He came and he said he went to the Kaaba and he saw a man, a woman, and a child. And he said, I saw them doing the strangest thing. They had their hands up and they were worshiping Allah and they were like saying praises to Allah. And everyone was ignoring them. There was a man and a child standing next to him, and a woman standing behind them. And then he went to one of the businessmen in the city and he said, I saw these three people and they were praying in a different way than everyone else, and everyone was ignoring them. And the man said, that was Muhammad, that was Khadija, and that was Ali. They are on a religion and I don't know anyone else that's part of that religion. So, many years start passing by and more Muslims accept Islam. And one of the people that actually accepted Islam was Ali's mother. And Ali's mother, she was like the same person. She raised the Prophet when he was young, and now she accepted Islam. She was one of the first Muslim women, actually. She was one of the first women to accept Islam as well. And Ali starts growing up, and he sees the rejection, and he sees the hostility towards the Prophet grow more and more and more and more and more, to a point where many years later, the hostility was so high against the Prophet that people tried to kill the Prophet. And Ali bin Abi Talib was seeing people attack his cousin, his most beloved person. We'll end here, but I'll end with this. When the Quraysh got together to assassinate the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet that tonight a group of assassins, there are going to be about 7 assassins that are going to come to your house while you're sleeping and kill you. So what does the Rasul do? He goes to Ali and he says, would you like to take my place in the bed while I escape? Now this sounds like a crazy thing. Like imagine if somebody comes to you and like, hey, a bunch of people are going to come and kill me. Do you want to take my place? You'd be like, man, are you crazy? But Ali was so happy that he said, yes, you go, you escape, and I'll take your place. I'll be your replacement. So when the assassins broke into the house, they saw a person sleeping. And Ali, subhanAllah, he said, that was the best sleep I had ever gotten. You would imagine he should have been sitting there shaking, scared. He said, I slept like a baby. I was snoring. He was sleeping, and the assassins jump him. They pull the curtains, and they see Ali, and they were expecting Muhammad. And they're shocked. And Muhammad and Abu Bakr had taken their camels, and they were going to Medina now. This is when they escaped to Medina. So the assassins start going throughout the city trying to find him. And subhanAllah, they were so mad and so enraged that Muhammad had escaped that they completely forgot about Ali. And subhanAllah, what's interesting, Ali gets up and the Rasul gave him one last mission. He told him, he said, once I leave, give back all the amanat to the people. So what does that mean? Because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was so trustworthy, people used to give him amanat. For example, when I travel, what do? I leave my car with somebody. I leave my car with my uncle or my cousin or something like that. And I say, yeah, just keep it parked near your house, turn it on every now and then. And when I come back, I'll pick it up. So everyone trusted the Rasul ﷺ. So they used to give all their amanat to him. Some of the people that gave their amanat to him were the assassins. So even the assassins that were trying to kill him, they left some of their things with the Prophet because they knew he was not going to take it. So when the Prophet escaped, he told Ali, after I leave, give back all the amanat to the people. So Ali actually goes, once the assassins leave, he takes all the things that the Prophet told him to do, and he starts giving everything back to the people. And then Ali runs off to Medina. And he said, I had no money, I had no camel, and I had no idea how I was going to get to Medina. Getting to Medina by foot, that's what he was going to do. That would be like walking from the Masjid Aman, all the way to Patterson on foot in the desert. Can you imagine that? He was around 18 years old at this time, so still a young guy, but that's an impossible thing. And he said that it was so difficult that what I used to do is that in the sun, when it was in the daytime, I would sleep, find some kind of shade and sleep. And at night, I would run as fast as I could to try to make up the lost time. So at nighttime, because the sun was the thing that would kill you. If you walked in the sun, you would dehydrate, you would faint, and you would die. So he walked the entire distance at night on foot. And he was by himself because at this point, his father was dead. Abu Talib had passed away at this point, and his brothers were gone. They were each in a different location. So Ali was all by himself. Ali walked all the way to Medina, and he actually got to Medina before the Prophet, because the Prophet had like a whole escape route, and it was a whole story. But he was one of the last people to get to Medina. When he gets to Medina and everyone is so happy that the Prophet is there, the Prophet ﷺ, he starts putting he makes ukhuwa. He makes people from Mecca and people from Medina brothers. So the newcomers to Medina, he would assign them a new brother in Medina, and they would live with them. He did a very smart thing. He took all the bachelors that came from Mecca and he put them all in one house. This is a very interesting, I never knew this until I was doing my research yesterday. There was one house in Medina where he put all the bachelors together because it was literally a bachelor pad. And Ali was part of that. And he started living in Medina, and he started, being self-sufficient at that age of 18, which even by our standards right now is still very young. We'll stop here, inshallah. Next week, what we're going to talk about, we're not going to continue with Ali next week, but what we're going to do, when Ali gets to Medina, he's now a young man. We're going to talk about, the jobs he gets, how he's going to make money, and we're going to talk about the one thing that all Muslim people will say to a young adult. They'll say, "When are you going to get married?" So next week we're going to talk about how Ali got married and who he got married to. Does anybody know who he got married to? No spoilers, because that's next week's class. Who did Ali bin Abi Talib get married to? Yes, this whole cave with the spider thing that happened with the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I'm not here to mention the whole seerah. I'm here just to mention different parts of the story of Ali. So was the Prophet atheist before Islam? Ma'adallah, no, he was not. Definitely not. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam always worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he didn't really have any rules for worshipping Allah. It wasn't like he disbelieved in Allah. He only believed in one God, but he disbelieved in all of the false gods. And he worshipped Allah in his own way. That's why when he used to go to Ghar Hira, he used to sit in the cave and just worship Allah on his own. He was not a polytheist. He wasn't an atheist. He wasn't a pagan. He was a Muslim. He worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when he became a prophet, Allah gave him the rules of how to be a proper Muslim. What does it mean to be a Muslim and to call people? So yes, very good. I see, mashallah. Who is Sweatband anyways? So Fatima is going to be his wife, and she is going to be the topic of next week's class, because Fatima bint Muhammad is also a child around Muhammad, because she is the daughter of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. When Ali was around 8 years old, Fatima was a newborn baby. So she was, at that time, Khadija, they say that when the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam got the wahi, Khadija was either pregnant with Fatima or she had just given birth to Fatima recently. Yes, all the prophets were Muslims. So yes, what was I saying? So next week, inshallah, we're going to talk about Fatima. Fatima, who she grew up in Islam. We're going to talk about who she was as a child and who she grew up to be. And then we're going to connect with her and see how she got married to Ali bin Abi Talib and how they, as a young couple, grew up again around the Prophet in Islam. So we went a little over, but I see there are a lot of questions and stuff. So does anyone have any questions? Try to keep it related to the topic. All the prophets were Muslims. Yes, all the prophets definitely were Muslims. Atheism mixed with Islam? No, it's just Islam, guys. There is no atheism. Atheism didn't even exist at this time. If you did not believe in a God, you were crazy. Nobody... See any of the other questions I missed. This one, no. They did not throw rocks at him when he was on the mountain of Safa. This happened much later, so don't get the different events mixed up. Yes, most respected people, the elders. Yes, next week, inshallah. So every Monday at 7:30 is the Children Around the Prophet series. We're going to go through different children around the Prophets and how they grew up. Who disliked? I don't know. Who's Mr. Memer? I don't know.
I don't know some of these people. Mr. Memer, Monty, mashallah. But I hope you guys enjoyed the class, guys. Again, if you have any questions, now is the time to do it. Did they have kids? Good question. Yes, sir, they did. So Ali bin Abi Talib and Fatima, they got married. We're going to leave that for next week, inshallah, if we have time. They got married, they had kids, and they formed Al-Bayt, what we call the family of the Prophet. Ziyad is Mr. Memer. Okay. That explains a lot. عمر وآسر. I don't know them. أهلا وسهلا. كيف الحال? عمر وآسر. أهلا وسهلا. How many kids? Off the top of my head, I think 4. I may be missing. We'll leave that for next week. Let me give me some time to do my research, inshallah. Because Ali also got married after Fatima passed away, so he got married to another woman. Hi, Omar. 4. I take no offense. All right, guys. Last chance for questions. 10. Okay. طيب with that, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Okay, I see a question right here. How old was the Prophet when he was on the mountain? What do you mean by the mountain? Do you mean the Ghar Hira when he first got the Wahi, or do you mean on Mount Safa? Because there are a lot of instances where the Prophet was on the mountain. All right, Mr. Memer, here's a shout out. Guys, subscribe to Mr. Memer. So when he got the Wahi, he was around 40 years old. That was the time when most scholars are in agreement that he was at the age of 40 when he got the Wahi. When he got to the Mount Safa, okay, so Mount Safa, when things went public, this was depending on how long the first gap was between the Quran. Some people say it was a few months. Some people say it was more than a year. It could have been the second or third year after Wahi. So maybe he was 43 years old. All right, everyone gets a shout out here. How about that? Everyone except Amir. Amir doesn't get a shout out. How about that? Man, some of you guys been texting me. MashaAllah. All right, guys. If anyone has any last questions, sucks to be. If anyone has any other questions after the class, you can just text me on Snapchat. So all the Sunday classes will be on Masjid Rats. The Monday class will be on Masjid Al-Aman. This is the correct channel. I apologize. Last week was the wrong channel, but this is the correct channel. So if you want to subscribe to this, you'll get notifications, but I'll also send the link around, inshallah. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Stay safe, everyone.